Hundreds of grassroots football referees in England have told the BBC that they fear for their safety on the pitch. Some describe being punched, headbutted and spat at.
And all of that is leading to body cameras for referees.
Right, chats, as explained, I've got a referee safety camera on today, so if at any point I feel unsafe or if I get any abuse, camera's going straight on.
That video was from a pilot project in the UK, the first of its kind. It's trying to curb that culture of abuse in the field in at least a few recreational leagues. And that's just the adults. If you have kids who play soccer, then you might have brushed up against this kind of conduct at a game or two.
It's an all-goddamn game!
Sorry.
Oh my God, you're a clown. Now you know why we don't have referees out here, okay? Because y'all get on us and get on the kids and get on each other. Hush your mouths, enjoy the game.
Here in Ontario, the Provincial Soccer Association has had enough. And last week, it followed suit with the program in the UK. It's launching a pilot program, putting body cams on refs for under 8s through 12s.
They are 14 and 15-year-old kids refereeing these games. So when we have adults getting in their face and yelling and screaming at them, that's quite intimidating and quite honestly, not acceptable.
Enough. I'm not hearing another word of anything.
Stay professional for the kids and just do your job.
That's just going to get one warning and that's it. Then I'm just going to throw them out.
For the parents?
Yep. Thank you.
I mean, you think body cams like this, right? You think about the police, not youth soccer officials. But Ontario Soccer is experimenting with body cams on the field because it says the situation is that bad. And it's causing referees to walk away from the game entirely.
A lot of the games normally have 3 match officials. So we're having to only schedule 1 match official for a game that should have 3 match officials.
And that means sometimes games have to be rescheduled because there just isn't a referee to handle them. And that seems like a situation where nobody wins. So, will cameras be enough to make people think twice about their bad behavior? In the last couple of years, especially since sports started up again after the pandemic, abuse towards referees has gotten markedly worse. The Durham Region Soccer Association estimates it got 1 call a week about assaults on officials in 2019, the last full season before the pandemic. But last year, it says it got an average of 2 to 3, doubling, even tripling the number of incidents.
Yeah, I think there's definitely stresses that are coming from the pandemic, and people are bringing those stresses from home life, from personal life, from work life. And I think some of them are bringing them to the field and they're finding an avenue to release those stresses. And unfortunately, the referee is the easiest target in a lot of those cases.
Yeah, it's not good. Yelling, walking onto the field, even intimidation off the field. And the thing is, these soccer associations say these incidents aren't always reported, often because the process of reporting can be intimidating and onerous.
A lot of the match official assault is verbal in nature. And for that reason, you know, a lot of our seasoned referees will opt not to report it.
It's not surprising then that because of all of this, a lot of officials are leaving the game and not coming back. Because why would anyone want to take that? Adrian Tangella, hi.
Hi.
So you are the head ref at North Toronto Soccer. And you've been reffing since you were 15, right?
That's correct, and I'm now 21.
There you go. So tell me, like, what have you seen as a referee?
I think really there have been great moments where I've had a chance to interact with kids, with adults sometimes, well, coaches, parents, or even adult players, and I've walked away from games feeling incredibly satisfied, and I think that's a massively beneficial part of refereeing. But I've also seen the lows and the darker side of it, and that means games where people will disagree with calls, but they won't just end it at disagreement. It'll mean voicing that in the form of insults and harassment. I've seen some very vile and offensive things said sometimes, and it's even escalated as far as physical assaults.
Wow, so what is it like? Tell me about your experience.
Well, my experience ranges from a little bit more innocuous, right? I wear glasses right now, and I wear them on the field as well, so sometimes that means I've been called out for my glasses. I've been implied as being blind. I've been called four eyes, which is especially ridiculous considering the last time I'd heard it was in grade 4. Right. So this is coming from grown adults, very, very different. But the worst part of it was really a physical assault. That was in July of 2021, so only a few years ago. I was on my own at a match. The match just finished, I called for full time, and then as that happened, two players are really going at each other. They're fist fighting. I'm giving them red cards as the laws would suggest. And by the time I'm done with that, whole teams have converged on the site of the incident, along with the parents. It's all one big brawl of maybe 40 or 50 people, and I'm really just caught up in the middle of it. I'm getting hit a couple of times. Before it can end, I've slipped out, gotten my backpack, and I'm going over to my car, and I'm being actually followed out to my car and being told that it's my fault, that this fight was all because of me, and all sorts of other obscenities I really don't want to repeat.
So what happened? You got in your car?
And I broke down. I got in my car and I just, I couldn't bring myself to call the police, to call anyone, text anyone. I just drove away, and it was a very difficult drive home, and the rest of the evening was very difficult.
So now associations are dealing with referee deficits, like big ones. In 2019, the association in Durham had 623 refs registered. Now there are 223. That's 2/3 fewer referees. And that's across the board. The Ontario Soccer Association says it has a lot fewer refs than it needs. This year, it has about 5,000, but it estimates it needs 12,000 to keep up with the games. And the thing is, it's happening in other sports too. Last year, 4,700 hockey officials were registered in Ontario, and that's far below the 7,700 from before the pandemic. Football, baseball, they're all seeing shortages. And the kicker? The people I talked to from some of the regional soccer associations, they told me they're seeing more kids playing soccer. So that's stretching those limited referee resources even thinner and putting more pressure on the officials. Johnny Misley, CEO of Ontario Soccer, hi.
Hi, how you doing, Lauren?
Good. So, I mean, this has been going on for a long time, and I know it's kind of gotten worse in the last couple of years, but, what is it that's made you bring this in now?
We've seen a reduction of as much as 50% of referees. Yeah. We've had 9,300 referees in the past in this province, and we've gotten down to about 4,500. And while the game is booming, more leagues, more teams, you need three things to operate a game at any age level. You need a coach in each team, you need players on each team, and you need match officials, referees. And without that, you can't have a game. So for too long, referees have been taken for granted. And when we unpacked why they weren't coming back, the number one reason by far, and there's a few of them, but number one by far is referee abuse. And that comes via verbal or physical abuse.
And I know this isn't every parent, right? But what are you hearing from parents since announcing this?
Since this news has kind of gone across not only Toronto and Ontario and the country, we've received emails and phone calls from all over, from referees, from coaches, and a lot of parents. And I can tell you overall, it's been very positive. Messages of good for a sport to take a leadership role in this. It's been around for decades, this abuse problem in refereeing. And secondly, people are curious to know how the impact's going to be. And honestly, we have way more questions than answers on this, but that's why you do a pilot project. We're very evidence-based in what we do, so the data will tell us and teach us a lot more about this. And hopefully, if we can lessen the abuse and to make sport more enjoyable, because at the end of the day, it's trying to teach young children life skills so they can be successful as adults through a game like soccer and all the other sports that kids take up every single weekend.
It's sad that it's come to this, that we are going to be using body cams, but hopefully it will be a deterrent for some of that behavior and offer another level of protection to our match officials.
So, what made you stay? What made you stay with it? And now you're training young referees.
It's that, actually. That's what made me stay with it, was an opportunity had come up a couple of months later to join North Toronto Soccer, and it was in a management role where now I have the capacity to oversee the development of referees, to help them become better refs, better individuals, but at the same time to effectuate cultural change. I realized that the problem we have is not isolated incidents. The one that happened to me is a symptom of a broader problem. And I think in that case, that means we need leadership, and we need purposeful leadership. There needs to be a solution and a goal in mind. To me, that's a culture of respect. And I knew during my interview at North Toronto Soccer that I had the opportunity and I had the support to create that kind of culture. And that's what kept me in it.
So when you talk about the culture around referees, what is it right now?
I think it's otherness. That's the word, this idea of an other, that's the culture. It's that referees are often portrayed as the third team in a lot of traditional soccer knowledge. And that third team is one of opposition. It's actually against both teams, right? In that case, the coaches and the parents and the players are all against the referees and the referees against them. And I don't think that's accurate in terms of how refereeing is. reason that we ref and the reason referees exist in youth soccer in Ontario is we want to develop players. We want to create a safe environment, a positive, inclusive, and uplifting environment for players, and ultimately referees are part of that solution, as are coaches and parents and of course the players themselves.
Right, it's all part of one cohesive game.
We're one team. We're one team.
Do you think this is going to make a difference? Is it going to change things, do you think?
I think it will. I think it will, but it's not the only solution. I think that once we start to increase accountability for people's actions, they'll start to recognize that what they're doing is not acceptable. So I think it's definitely part of that solution. But if we really want to create that culture of respect, we need to start from step 1, where this might be more like step 4 or step 5. And step 1 means realizing, helping everyone, educating the people of Ontario, the coaches and the parents and players, that referees are on their side, right? And that we want the collaboration of the coaches to help the parents understand that, because there's many more parents than there are coaches or refs, right? So we need to all work together to try and help people understand that if we can be respectful to the referees will be respectful to the players. We'll have many refs and enough to cover all the games, and soccer in Ontario will get better. But we need to start with that understanding, and then we can start narrowing in on incidents of abuse and assault. But if that understanding is not there, to me it seems a little bit pointless to just target isolated incidents.
Right, and you can't have a game without referees.
Absolutely not.
Adrian Tangella, thank you so much.
Thank you, my pleasure.